You guys all told me I was wrong, so it's time for some clapbacks. Let's go. Hey everyone, I'm Cole Caparoon. Thank you for stopping by for another video. I mean this to be kind of a fun video, but it did get me thinking. My last video on AI not taking our jobs. First of all, thank you all for watching that one. That blew up super hard. And the comments were almost entirely respectful. They really were. Even in the cases where people were really adamantly disagreeing. So thank you guys for keeping it respectful. That was a good conversation. There's lots of good comments. What's interesting is that the comments were split like 50-50. 50% of the people thought that I was wrong and 50% of the people thought my opinion was valid. And it just got me thinking, I don't want to jump on here and just spew nonsense. I really don't. Contrary to some popular belief maybe. I only want to share my opinions if I actually think that they're valid and that they will help somebody. So after the AI video last week, I was just like, let's check the track record. Let's just dig back and see how often I predicted something that it came true. And how often did I get something totally wrong? And so I just went through and I looked at all the videos over the last bunch of years that people were really in disagreement with, that the majority of the comments were telling me I was wrong. And then I just analyzed where we're at now. So I have a list. This honestly, I promise you, this is me checking myself. But I thought it'd be a funny video, but this really is me checking myself to make sure that I'm on point, make sure I'm giving you guys good info. So I guess let's just get into it. The first video that people just ripped me to shreds for was my Magic is in the Mid-Range video. Consequently, has been so many people, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people have told me completely changed their ability to mix. But in that video, there was a shocking number of people that were like, all he's doing is boosting EQ. He's not cutting anything. You're not supposed to boost with EQ. You're only supposed to cut. And I knew that this was a theory. I didn't think that this theory permeated so deeply into everyone's psyche that mixes. And so I did a follow-up video on that one about boosting versus cutting, and I literally broke down and showed you that there is absolutely no difference between boosting and cutting. So check those videos out if you want to watch them. It's quite entertaining. But the general synopsis of how I EQ is I cut to solve problems. If there's a resonance in something that I want to get rid of, I cut. If there's harshness that I want to get rid of, I cut. But if I want more top end, then I boost. If I want more mid-range, then I boost. If I want more low end, then I boost. Cut to solve problems, boost to shape tone. But I did in a very scientific way show that there is no difference between boosting and cutting. It's one check mark for me. Okay, now this one is controversial, and I've probably made 8 videos on this topic over the past 6 or so years. And it is about Spotify. And every time I talk about Spotify, I get ripped apart in messages and in comments saying that like Spotify is amazing. How are people supposed to discover your music if it's not for Spotify? On and on and on and on and on. But I started railing against Spotify probably 9 years ago, saying that I could just see by the way that they were running their company that it was not headed in a good direction, that I could tell that they didn't care about artists, they didn't care about artists' careers, and that they would sell artists up the river the very second they could to get extra money in their pockets, that they were not in it for you. And I have always gotten ripped apart for this by my own clients even. And it's funny to watch these tides turn. So I had to write this all down. After I initially started talking about this, people told me I was crazy. I made a video about how they paid Joe Rogan and how this is a terrible thing for the music industry. Everybody told me I was crazy. Then I made a music industry predictions video. This is many years ago, talking about how Spotify would eventually become their own label and they would eventually only push their own artists on playlists, and that you, the independent artists, would have a much harder time getting traction on Spotify. We're going to come back to that. Remember that one, because it ended up being way worse than that. Then they tried to overturn the Music Modernization Act, which is the first raise that songwriters got in years. They literally went to court to try to overturn this legislation. I made a video about it. Everyone told me I was crazy. Then they cut all payments to over 63 million songs. All in a single moment, 63 million songs stopped getting paid. And I made a video about it. and people told me I was crazy. And Spotify's still awesome. Then they started running ads for ICE, and then Daniel Ek, the CEO, dumped $200 million into an AI drone company for military applications, and was the person who rounded up a $600 million investment into AI military drones. And I started talking about this. People told me I was crazy. Then they started creating their own AI music and incentivizing employees to put their own AI music on playlists instead of real artists, independent artists, so that way they could keep a larger share of the revenue pool so they could pay artists even less. And finally, between the ICE ads, the military drones, and the AI music, we are finally seeing a giant revolt against Spotify. But I called this 9 years ago, and everyone told me I was crazy. I get some satisfaction out of this one because for years I've been like, how can you all not see this? Well, we're finally starting to see it. There's a big revolt. People are pulling their music off of Spotify. People are canceling their Spotify memberships. It's finally happening 9 years after I started screaming about this. Another check mark for me. Okay, this was an interesting one. I did a mix bus chain video, and I talked about how I EQ before compression almost all the time, in every instance within mixing, and I didn't feel like this was a controversial take. But like 60 or 70% of people were surprised by that, or at least in the comments were surprised by that. And so much so that David from Mixbus TV made a video about my video critiquing my approach, which is totally fine. He was very respectful. He messaged me ahead of time, let me know that he was doing it. He had my blessing. But I just didn't really think that this was a controversial topic at all. I didn't see this as being controversial, but let me quickly explain to you why I almost always EQ before I compress. When you put a compressor on something, it reacts to whatever is being fed into it. Now, let's use a hypothetical, and let's say I have a vocal that has a ton of low-end rumble. The singers shuffling their feet and the AC's running, and there's just this 80 hertz, oh. I want to get rid of that, obviously. Like, we don't want that in a vocal. But what we really don't want is we don't want a vocal compressor reacting to all of that low end, because it's going to make the compressor clamp down way harder. Every time a singer shuffles his feet and there's a gudong in the vocal mic, the compressor is going to react to that. I don't want the compressor to react to that. I want the compressor to react to what I feel is a finished or close to finished vocal sound. So I will high pass that vocal before the compressor. So that way, none of that low end triggers the compressor. I don't want it in the vocal, and I don't want my compressor reacting to it. And this is the foundation, the principle for why I always EQ before compression. Now, often I also EQ after compression. So it's not like you can only do it one way. It's not like I think people are at fault for doing it, for EQing after compression instead of before. This is a creative art. There is no right and wrong with this stuff. But I have a very, very specific reason why I do it. And in my opinion, it's extremely valid. You don't want foot rumbles and AC rumble in your vocal mic, and you don't want your compressor reacting to that. So that same principle applies to everything. If there's a ton of harshness in the vocal, I don't want the harshness to be what's triggering the compressor. I want a very well-rounded vocal to be what's triggering the compressor. I don't get a check mark for this one because there's no right and wrong. We're making art here. This is not a technical, objective thing, but I have a very, very specific reason why I do it, and I think it yields the best results. You try it and see what you think. Okay, the next one, which really cracks me up, and again, I didn't see this coming. Every single video that I talk about acoustic treatment, there's always a chunk of people in the comments being like, well, fill in the blank, I don't even know. Well, Drake recorded his last single in a hotel room and there's no acoustic treatment in there and it went 20 times platinum, so you don't need acoustic treatment. That's nonsense. It's a funny argument to me that people will see someone do that in some guerrilla recording scenario, which, yes, obviously you can literally record without acoustic treatment. You can literally mix without acoustic treatment. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying when I talk about acoustic treatment is that if you want to do this for a living, and if you want to have results that are consistent, you don't want to deal with something where like this mix is awesome and the next mix sucks. Why? Why are they so so different? It's because you can't hear what's actually happening. It's because you got lucky on this one and you got unlucky on this one. But when you have really good acoustic treatment, your first reflection points are covered, your room sounds good, and you can actually hear what's happening, then you don't get lucky and unlucky. You get consistency. And if you want a career in this, you gotta be consistent. You can't have home runs and hard flops. You have to be consistent. I'll give myself a check mark for this one. Bing! Because yes, you can actually do the job without acoustic treatment, but every piece of content that I make is geared towards people that are trying to do this for a living. I'm trying to help you forge a career, and I'm trying to explain to you the things that gave me a career. And this is a big one for me. Acoustic treatment is a big one for me. It's literally the difference between happy accidents and mixes that sounded awesome accidentally, and then a whole bunch of crap, and me being able to consistently perform at a very high level. You do you, but I'm telling you where I'm coming from. Okay, the next one is an interesting one to me because it's the source of the only video I've ever deleted. I posted a short on YouTube, this is a handful of years ago, where I was, if you follow me on Instagram, you see that I'm always posting these reels of songs that I'm working on. Hey, here's a mix, here's a master, and then the song is literally playing, the audio's running through all the hardware, all the lights are flashing, and I just kind of pan around and let you hear the song and let you see my settings. I'm posting stuff like that constantly over on Instagram, so I decided to post a mastering one of those over on YouTube Shorts on this channel. And I got shredded in the comments, 100% negative comments of people telling me that I am not a real mastering engineer, that I have no business mastering. It was very surprising to me. And I was like, where is this coming from? I've mastered every single successful song I've ever worked on. I master more songs than I mix because I master every song that I mix, but I also master for a whole bunch of other mix engineers and other producers. According to Muso AI, I landed top 5% mastering engineers in the whole world this past year. And that's with only 92 credits listed on there. I really need to spend more time putting credits up there out of thousands of songs that I've worked on. I don't even have 99% of the stuff I've worked on listed as credits, which I should take some time and do, and it still is top 5% in the world. But this is surprising to me. And whenever I do videos on mastering, there's always a handful of comments being like, you're not a real mastering engineer. What is a real mastering engineer? What's a real mix engineer? What's a real producer? Literally all it is someone who does the job, gets paid for the job, and can pay their bills with it. That's all it is. That's literally it. If you can master enough songs and you can charge enough where you get paid for your work and you can pay your bills with that, awesome. You're a mastering engineer. Congratulations. This is a weird one. I get a check mark for that one too, because I obviously am a mastering engineer. I've mastered many hundreds of songs, probably thousands of songs. Anyway, that was a real surprising one to me. Okay, the next take that I got is that STEM mastering isn't real mastering. Every time I talk about this, I get shredded for it. And that's fine, because you can have whatever opinions you want. My take on STEM mastering is that real mastering is you take a mix print, a left and right, and that's all you have to work with. And your job is to mold it and to color it and to sculpt it into being the best that it can possibly be. And if it's getting released with other songs, you have to get them all to play nice next to one another. Similar levels of bottom end, similar levels of mid-range and top end, similar levels between them all. And you have to use your ears to do this, because if you have a piano vocal and then a super dense rock or pop song next to it, the meters will lie to you. If you rely just on the numbers of the meters, and you put them at the same level on the meter, the acoustic or the piano vocal thing will be twice as loud, because that's just how metering works. So you have to use your ears. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. STEM mastering. When you are STEM mastering, that means someone is sending you a drum stem and a guitar stem and a key stem and a vocal stem and all of that stuff. Now, I think where people have misunderstood my opinion on this is I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I really don't. I don't think there's anything wrong with STEM mastering. I just don't think it's mastering, it's mixing, because you are still mixing elements together, literally in the name. You are mixing and balancing different elements within the mix. Therefore, it is not mastering, it is mixing. And again, I don't care if anyone does this. Absolutely go for it and absolutely do it if that's your preferred workflow. I've got no issues with that. It's just not mastering is all I ever say about it. And I think people misunderstand that. I'll take a check mark for that one too. Okay, the next one is how much compression I use on my vocals. Now again, this is one where there's no right and wrong, but I will commonly track vocals with 20 dB of compression, and I will commonly hit 20 dB of gain reduction in the mix on the vocal, on that exact same vocal. So 40 dB of gain reduction, 40. And there is an idea, I think it's going away finally, but there's a lot of people that just, because there's a bunch of idiots here on YouTube telling people how to mix that aren't actually successful mix engineers, there's this idea that you should only compress things a few dB, that you should never slam something like that. If your vocal compressor is hitting more than 5 dB of compression, you're doing it wrong. And absolutely nothing could be further from the truth. First of all, there is no right and wrong because it's art. And as long as you're getting the result that you want, then you're not doing it wrong. Now, you might be doing it in a way that someone else doesn't like, that it goes against their preference, but it's not wrong. But there are a few things that are very important to allow me to compress like this and get the vocal tone that I want. And the first thing is compressor choice. Different compressors have a different maximum amount of compression that they can handle before they start falling apart and sounding bad. So handpicking the compressors that are capable of doing this is part of the secret sauce. The other thing that is part of it is a medium-ish attack and a very, very fast release. On almost every compressor that I use on vocals, the release is as fast as it will possibly go. Now, those two things, choosing the right compressor that will keep itself together at 20 dB of gain reduction, and the settings that I'm using are part of the reason that I can get away with this and that I get the vocal sound that I do. I'm not giving myself a check mark for this one because there's no right and wrong. But if someone tells you to only use 5 dB of gain reduction on your vocal compressor, don't listen to them. They're wrong. If someone shows you a technique that only uses 5 dB of compression and you really like that result, awesome. That's great. Anyone who tells you cold, hard, always do this or never do this, they're wrong and you shouldn't listen to them. This video is way longer than I thought it was gonna be, but we've got a couple more. I do wanna touch on the AI taking our jobs. I think we're just overestimating this. I think throughout all of history, people overestimated this. When the automobile came out, people thought that stablemates were gonna be out of jobs and there's gonna be just massive layoffs everywhere because the automobile is gonna kill people that take care of horses. Well, no, all those people, plus a whole bunch more, just went to work at building automotive cars in automotive factories. It didn't negatively impact the job market. Let's get something a little bit more relevant. When they started putting cameras in cell phones, there's a whole bunch of people that are like, that's it, all photographers are out of jobs. But I promise you there's more photographers making a living today than there ever has been. When the camera itself, when a film camera first came out, they said that painters were going to be out of jobs. And guess what? I promise you there are more painters making a living today than there ever has been in history. When Pro Tools first came out, they said that's it, because we don't need anybody running tape machines anymore. It's gonna decimate the recording industry. Pro Tools is gonna end the recording industry. And guess what? That didn't happen. There's arguably way, way, way more studios today than there ever have been, and way, way, way more people today making a living at making music than there ever has been. Every time we see a significant jump in technology, the instant knee-jerk reaction of just about everybody is, oh, that's the end. It's over for us. And I'm guilty of this too. I thought that way about this AI situation for a long time. But if we look at history, every time technology comes and we all feel like it's the end, it's actually not the end. Arguably, it's almost always a good shift that allows far more people to do it for a living. I think AI is going to be the same. It's an example that I didn't put in my AI video, and I wanted to include it here. I'm very optimistic. I'm not 100% optimistic, but I'm very optimistic about this. We'll give a half a check mark for that one. No, actually, no check mark for that one, because we don't actually know yet. We're gonna find out. We're gonna find it. We're gonna look back in 10 years, just like I did with Spotify. In 10 years, I'm gonna look back and be like, well, I was right about AI, just like I am doing in this video about Spotify. Okay, the last one, we gotta address Atmos, because good Lord, is that the most controversial topic. Actually, before we address Atmos, there's links in the description down below for every single piece of gear that I use. And so anytime you guys need any piece of gear whatsoever, you can jump on any one of my videos, click on any of the links in the description of any video. And once you're on the site, you can purchase absolutely anything you need. When you do that, it goes a super, super long way to help this channel out. Help me keep making videos like this, tutorials, information, all that kind of stuff. And even if it's just a pack of strings, a microphone cable, it doesn't have to be big stuff, literally anything. You can get anything you need from Sweetwater. Those links go to Sweetwater. So thank you so much, Sweetwater, for sponsoring this video, and huge thanks to you guys for using those links anytime you need to purchase literally anything. It means a lot to me. Thank you guys so much for the support, and thank you for supporting the people that support me. Let's talk about Atmos. I went into this Atmos thing, it's been almost 2 years ago. Maybe a little more than 2 years ago. I just was blown away by the technology, and I was blown away by the experience of hearing it, and the level of emotional impact that it had on me, and how much fun making music was again. And I was just so pumped about every aspect of it. And I was met with near 100% resistance in the comments. I didn't expect this, because I was just super jacked on it. I was super pumped to do it. I was super pumped to share my journey with you. I was super pumped to work in the format and to be inspired emotionally and creatively again. And I was just met with the most resistance in all of the Atmos videos, so much so that it's the topic that the most reaction videos have been made about my videos. There's been dozens and dozens and dozens of people make videos about my Atmos videos. And I didn't see that coming. I never saw that coming. I was just hyped about a new thing and excited to share it with you guys. Now, I did do a video about whether or not Atmos was a financial success or failure, because the most of people said is like, Atmos isn't gonna last. He's gonna be selling his speakers in 6 months. This is a fad. He's getting paid by big speaker companies, by big audio to promote this, which is just the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life. And so I did a video talking about the logistics and the financials of it. And in that video, I discussed how I have made enough money off of Atmos mixes to pay for the rig. Now that video is months and months old, so now I have superseded that. I am in the profit margin for the cost of this rig. Now that's not me saying that you should do it. I am not telling anybody to do it. I'm doing it. I'm pumped about it. It's working for me. Therefore, it was worth doing to me. I am having the most fun creatively. I'm the most emotionally satisfied in music when I'm mixing in Atmos, and it is now profitable for me. Now, to me, I consider that a win. I don't know what more you could possibly want out of something. Again, not telling you that you need to do it or that you should do it, but to me, now, a year and a half later, it was 1,000% worth it. There's no more upsides that I could have possibly wanted out of it than to be emotionally and creatively inspired and satisfied, and for it to be profitable. Like, I don't know what you want from me. Check, big check mark. Okay. That's about enough. There's a whole bunch of like smaller ones, little more nuanced things. I was just looking at what's the big ones, the big overarching topics that I got shredded for, and how did it end up turning out? And I gotta say, that's a pretty good track record. Some of it's subjective. Some of it you could say is a plus or a minus, and that's fine. But that's a pretty good track record. And I'm betting that I'm right about AI as well. So time will tell. I'll do another video like this in 8 years, and we'll see. I'll either be homeless living in a box on the street or I'll be like, check, I was right. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.